So I've been building a lot of robots recently, as you can see. I built a Doomslayer. Not gonna make a video about that. Didn't record any of the process, and also that took way too long. I worked on it for like 3 days. Not like the entire time 3 days, but like it still took way too long. And this is like max complexity, so it's very much hollow. But anyways, I've been building a lot of robots recently, and I've also been playing a decent bit of Repo recently, so I want to build one of the robots from Repo in Trailmakers. And when I got the idea for this video, I couldn't help but do a little bit of thinking about how I would even do this, and I think I'm gonna get... I think I want to build it to the scale of roughly these eyes, because these eyes you can paint them, and then if I use a decal, I can add the little signature little black dot that they have. Really small, about that big, and then paint that black, and then we have like the standard repo eye. And that's not really what I want to do with that quite yet, so I'm gonna delete those, but I was thinking about how I could build the body. And I was thinking a circle kind of just like this would work really well for the bottom layer, because I do want to make this be able to compress. Now, I want to see if it fits, but for the legs I'm probably just going to do something in the line of... That's too small. But is there something I could do with like this that would make more sense? Can I do that? And then that, and then that? Does that make sense? Scale-wise, I think it does. Maybe that? I don't know. And then I want to connect this all up, but I want to leave room for... We're just going to rotate this to face the correct direction for the mechanics, and I think what I'm going to do here, because they're in the game, their legs kind of just move back and forth, and that's how they walk, which is a little unrealistic, but it looks good in a sense where I can, but since this is physics-based, I really just can't do that. First off, I'm going to build up this a little bit to be about the correct height. And then I'm going to make these on pistons so that we can retract them. So that we can walk forward, okay, naturally, it is going to be in about this state, maybe a little bit further down. And then we can retract the leg, move it forwards, extend the leg, bring it back down, and that kind of motion, and we can alternate it on this one, is going to get us walking. And then in here, I can add sort of suspension. That's not going to work. I want this to be cushioned at all, because I know that it's going to be tough to, like, to walk. What if I use half of the pistons and then go like this and put this in here? And that way we can just have that like that, and then down here, I'm gonna actually disconnect this and then have hinges, which are up here because they're for steering, right there, and duplicate that, slide that over right there, and then we can have that, duplicate that over, and we can replace this with logic blocks later, but then we can have this go like that. And I don't know where I'm going to put the seat. The seat is going to be something a little bit difficult to do. If I simplify this even further to just be one piston and one suspension per, and then I can delete that and just make it a normal block like that and a normal block like that, then we can include the seat right there, and then when it's in the collapsed form, it'll be better. Although the seat is not at all connected. Can I connect it using like that? Okay, I think that that's gonna work. Okay, so then it is in a very basic state right now, but we can kind of do this. If I set these pistons to be start position 0.15, and then it's like that, then we can have it extend on the back stroke, so this is going to be extending on A and contracting on D. Auto reset. This is going to be extending on D and retracting on A. So then that's going to be... I think the speed should be upped a little bit, but otherwise I think that this is basically what I intended. I might have to flip it, because, like, they take a second to kick in, so I might have to have it start extending here, and then it will be extended over here, and then start retracting. So it's gonna go like that. But I'm gonna try upping the speed for now. 2 is probably not. Let's go 4. Cool. Yeah, I think I am gonna have to flip that and lower the speed back down. We're gonna try to, and then I think this should just be as easy as doing that. I also don't have any gyros in right now, but as you can see, it's kind of doing the motion that I want it to, where when it's going back is when it is, like when it's touching the ground is when it is going backwards. And honestly, I don't think that suspension, I don't think we can fit it, and I don't think it's gonna help enough to matter. So what we're gonna do instead is, what if we have this like that? So then that way you can go fully flush. We can have the start position be less. And then I can put gyros in right here. And, is this... Okay, I can move that. Move that too. Put a gyro in the back here. Fully flush. I wish I could get this one flush, but I don't know how to do that. And then I can get another gyro over here. And I think that that is a good first layer. Because even if after we build, like, the second layer and the top layer, at, like, the bottom, compressed, this is going to have probably at least, like, this shape over it. So it's gonna still be covered up, and then we're gonna have a little bit of the middle section too. I don't want it to extend, like, all the way when we do that, so what actually I'm going to do is I'm going to set this to, like, start position 0.3-ish. Auto reset is on, and then I'm actually going to use NOR gates instead, so that I can put a NOR gate in here. So that if I'm not pressing anything, it is going to contract. But if I do press something, that's when it can no longer retract, and it's going to automatically go back to its starting position, which is less, so I can limit the angle that we do that. Oh, this one's going to be connected to this one. What is the extend button for this? A. So I need this to be on A, and this to be on D. And then, yeah. And then I need to unconfigure this. And then both of them will go to 0.3. Wait, no, both of them go to 0.3, and then they contract. And then if I press that, then it goes to 0.3. And what we get from that is this kind of motion. Although I do want to make these hinges a little bit faster. So I want to set that to 2. And then... I honestly think that the piston speed is a little bit too much, so I'm going to turn that back down to 1. And then that goes out like that. And then if we get, like, a logic on this, and we get the servo that we'll need, we can just put that right here, not the servo. It's a rotational gyro right here, just to dampen things. I'm gonna unbind the controls for now, because I'm using left and right to do this, but when I put the logic in, I can just do that normally. And then something else I'm going to do, I currently have these swapped. I'm actually going to do this, and then set this to -2, so that I can input it with a positive input, and it'll, like, work the same, but for now I can still go like that. That is not correct. I don't think I swapped that, maybe? Okay. So now we can kind of get a little bit of, like, running. And I don't hate this. It is kind of slow. But the alternative is that we increase the speed of the pistons to, like, 3, and swap out which one is doing which again. So then if I press right, that is extending like that. It needs to be a faster extension, though. So we're gonna take these up to, like, maybe 4, 5-ish. Yeah, that way it is extending on the downbeat. I wonder what will happen if I add a slight delay to both of these, because I don't want it to extend immediately. 0.1. Honestly, this isn't too bad. I think that setting the default to maybe like 0.10 would be better. Yeah, and that's honestly not too bad. I wish that the hinges were faster, but this is the fastest we can do with these hinges. And honestly, just due to the curves that we do have, I might change up the design to make the outer one something, like, not the outer one, the bottom one something closer to this. Because I don't know what I'm going to do that is just slightly smaller than this. And then I can use a little panel block to round that part out a little bit more. So I'm going to move those up. Disconnect these, because they just don't need to be there. Move these up. And then move these back down. That should be like that. I don't need those. There. And then it should be an easy copy and paste everything I have here. And then I'll have to flip that around and go like that. And then that works for that. Okay. And then we want to extend that up a little bit, so I'm gonna tuck these in the next layer there. All of these need duplicated. All of these do too, but I'm gonna add the support first, and then all of these do. And then, if we go like this, double click that. Now we have kind of working. We need to duplicate these, though, over to there. I would say that that's a little bit better. I want to make a third layer of this, which I should have done in the moment, but I thought maybe 2 was enough from the image that I'm looking at, and it wasn't. Oh, okay. So I need to put that there, and then move these back up, because I forgot to move those down. And then we can select all of those and go like that. Okay, so that's 2 sections done. That's not too bad. Except I want to disconnect that entirely, because what I want to do is collapse this into that. And I think what I'm gonna do to do that is just use some more pistons, and hope that it doesn't screw with any of the stuff that I've built before. That's basically how you work with pistons. You just kind of hope that it doesn't do anything bad or atrocious. It's not atrocious. I'm good. I can speak words. I'm good at wording. Okay, and then we're gonna, because we have this little gap here, we are gonna set these to start position 0.8. We might go 0.7. Start position 0.7. Is that gonna work out good? Honestly, I think that that's pretty good. And then what we can do from there is we can collapse it even further, and that's how we're going to get the crouching. Just to make that a little bit more seamless, I'm going to do 0.68, see if that works. Nah, I'm going to need like 0.65, to be honest. Okay, that is perfect, and then I can collapse that like that, and that just works. I don't think I can do that with the legs, unfortunately. I thought about, like, collapsing the legs so that we could put them in more, but I don't think that that's gonna work out with weld groups, realistically. And that's part of why I wanted to do a piston walking system, was because then we could have the start position weirder, like, and further extended, and then we could just retract them more, but honestly, I don't think that that's gonna work out. And then I think this section needs to be extended by one or two more, so I'm just gonna do this, and then I'm going to unselect all of the top things here. So it's just that. Extend that out, and then compare, and I don't think that that is too bad. And I thought I was going to do something like this, but this is so limiting in connections that I kind of want to space it out a little bit more. And I'm not certain how to do that, because this is what we have on the bottom, and that is a, like, larger curve, so I'm gonna look at some blocks. For the head, I still want to do, uh, this, basically. Just a basic that, which should work for the head, and then, a little this for, like, after that. And then that should work for the general head. But I need something to fuse that to this better, and it's kind of the layer, like, before the mouth. So I'm gonna have, like, a hinge here that I can use for the mouth. Maybe just, like, space or something. High speed, angle, 30 is probably good, to be honest. And then this is gonna be basically the same, but I need that in a separate layer. Okay. So we're connecting that, and then we have this. I feel like that head's small. I could do something like this, but I want to add something here, and I think that the panel isn't, like, big enough to maintain the correct curve. And then I am going to switch this out for just a different configuration of them, because it's going to be a lot easier to move the mouth if I can make these logic blocks and have the face, like, not connected to it, if I use something like this. And then it does have that top connection, but when you're moving hinges in Trailmakers, oftentimes you actually can have stuff connected and it might ignore it if you do it right. Although I found out that that is kind of weird when it comes to that. So honestly, I might just try and make the head out of the logic blocks. Yeah, I think that this little block here can probably do for that. It's not perfect, but if you're not looking at it, it's probably fine. I am going to try and paint this up, so we're gonna start painting this red. That's just, like, how we're gonna do this. I think that that's probably a more fitting red color than that. And then we're gonna realize that I want these pistons to be on the back there, and that this is the front. And then we can use a decal to cover this in a red square. Size it up just because, and then lock position, and then we have this slight chrome, like, trim on the very edge, but it's not too bad, and it's basically unnoticeable. Okay, so then that goes like that. And that's not too bad. I feel like I need to move this up one, and then have the starting position be lower, so like 0.4, so that it can have that starting position, but then when we go down, it is in, like, the correct place. Although I think that that is still too high. I want it to be able to contract at all, but I feel like that's triggering something in it. Because, like, it's causing me to tip over, which means that there's collisions that don't want to happen. And if it's just going to contract that much, why not just have it attached? Oh, that is just the bottom layer, because I did not connect the bottom layer to anything. That's my fault. Okay. And then if I could actually configure this to be like that, speed 2, then I can press that, and it will move up. And then because that is not, this is not the head shape that I want, I've added these little things that I can then attach the eyes to, right here and here. This isn't perfect. I might want to move them about there at, you know what, I do want to move them about there. That is not the block I wanted for that. And then we can paint this red, and paint these how we would the eyes. So white, white. I'm only going to do one of them, and then I can just duplicate it, and the decal will stay instead of having to do 2 different decals. And I think we decided, like, about that big. And then we can paint that black. And then that is a basic eye. And I was going to use a piston to put that, like, something over the top of the head. Although these eyes are too close. So what I'm going to do instead is have this panel just gone. And then have these on their own separate pistons. And then have a bit right here. And a bit right here. And then we can retract these inwards with pistons and have that like that and that like that. So we can just space the eyes how we want to. And then if we spawn that in at the, like, the 0 point, that is what it looks like. Which, kind of the sphere shape that I wanted out of that, so that's neat. But if we spawn that in when these are at, like, 0.10... then it spawns like that. I want them a little bit closer. We're probably going to do like 0.7... 0.07, I mean. And then that just works out great. Although I think those eyes are popped out a little bit too much, and I feel like moving them in a block is popping out a little bit too little. I also added a NOR gate into the mouth, just like it's a really small, like, number, like, input, so it's just the littlest bit of degree there, and it's to make them a little bit more realistic. But I wonder if there's anything I can do to get the eyes... Well, I want them a little bit bigger, and I also want them more outside. So I don't really like this solution, but I've come up with this, and I think it's the best that I've come up with so far. It's not that bad. It's just white and black blocks with a target painted on the outside to have that effect. And what I wanted to do was, I can just delete that because I can duplicate that one. I wanted to go to here, grab this thing, and then have this here. And then that would have been, like, perfect, and I can actually connect one of them, and that would have been a lot better for an eye shape. The problem with that is that as soon as I try and get a connection point for the other one, everything falls apart because these can't be connected to each other like that. So I'm honestly not certain what to do about that. I experimented with a lot of things, including, like, using backwards mirrors from the round mirror. Because this you can kind of get to look like an eye if you go like that, but then the attachment point is, like, really weird, and the pupil's a square anyway. So I tried a bunch of stuff. I think that the eyes are just gonna have to be a little jank. I think that this is fine. I then decided to work on it just slightly longer and came up with this design, which I really don't hate. These are so much bigger, and I did have to adapt the head shape to fit them. And like that's why you have those little panels in there. But honestly, I don't hate this. I wonder if I can get away with switching these to that. There might be a little bit of white bit above it. Honestly, no, not really. Oh, there is on that side a little bit more. Is that consistent? Why is it favoring one side? I don't know. But honestly, this is much better than I anticipated it to go. Now let's just add some pupils so it doesn't look quite as dead. I feel like that would be nice, and then we can go like this, black, black. Oh, now they're really dilated. You can actually control how dilated they are using the size thing, but I think I'm gonna go about that much. That seems fair. And then I can take that and duplicate it to this side. As much as I would love to do animated eyes, I think the only way that I could do that would be with either rotation. We're already piston clipping this. We can't really rotate it with another hinge. That would be another weld group. And we can't really use the LEDs because they're not the right shape. But that looks so much more alive now. I like that. Okay, now let's try and work on the arms. I don't know how I'm going to do this in specifically, but I think a good starting point is getting something to mount the arms off of, like that. And then we can probably just, if I go like that, then we can get a gap in there. And then it still compresses, because why wouldn't it? Like, that's... I was just making sure that I wasn't breaking anything. And then if I delete those, because those didn't help that much, then I can get... maybe a hinge here, and here, and then we can... trying to decide how to do this, and I think that the best bet is just to, like, cap it off. So if I go like that, and that, then that's doing that. Nouns. I'm good at nouns. And then I can grab one of... I don't think the cone is the correct choice. I can grab one of these, however, and kind of just attach that to the side here. Attach that like that. I kind of want to do this one lower then. And then I think I want the arm to go like that, so I'm gonna... I duplicated this over here, and now I'm going to have that there, which means that I can have one of these right here. Paint that red. And then that kind of works for an arm. And then I had a terrible idea, because this isn't like the shortest sneak, and it's because the legs aren't retracting. Because I can't just shove them into the torso. So what happens if I go like that, and then take one of these pistons, have this default to like 0.5-ish, 0.5, this is going to be about there, and then I can duplicate that like that, and like that, and then I can duplicate them like this, and then they won't be connected, because these aren't connected, but then I can, where is it, add a cone to the bottom of these. How does that look? Not the best. And honestly, not worth it to me. Also, that was my Discord notification. streamer mode on Discord didn't turn on, and I'm too lazy to go into the settings and then do that myself. Okay, now I have to do the logic for this, which is where the blocks up here kick in, because I can take this number display, delete that, make it an XOR gate instead, and then I'm gonna try and gauge just how frequently I'm taking a step, so that's dot, 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 dot. So realistically, about 0.4 seconds per step, maybe? We'll try 0.3 to start, and then we can increase it. We have 0.3, 0.3, 0.3. These aren't going to be running into anything. And it is going to be set to W. And if we go over here, do the same exact thing. Delete whatever was there. Duplicate this over, and then configure this so that it's not doing that. Then, just to show you, I won't be able to keep it this way, and I have to remove it if I want to do the mouth afterwards, but also... Oh, that is not the right button. I immediately pressed the mouth button. Okay, we're going left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. That's honestly probably a bit too fast, but it's gonna be fine. I can just edit that a little bit. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Why did you move? And then I can go 0.5 instead. 0.5. This might be too long. I will tune it off camera if it is. I just want to get the logic done on camera, so that you can know how you can build this for yourself if you want to. And then I have to make sure that the delay on this is still 0.5. I'm going to make this one negative. That is going to screw with the piston, I think, but actually, I'm using NOR gates for the pistons. I don't know if that's going to screw with that. And then we'll make this one left arbitrarily, so I think that runs into those. And this one runs into the opposite. Actually, this one has to run into all of the same ones. I didn't think about that. Because it's going one step and then reversing that. So that runs into all of that. I think this goes into here. Not there. The NOR gate on here. And this one goes into the NOR gate on here, but I could be very wrong. Okay. 0.5 doesn't seem like enough time. Apparently this gate did not get hooked into any of these. Anyway. Okay, so I did hook up the NOR gates correctly. Now we just have to tune the timing on it, because this is a little bit slow. Okay, I have to make sure that both of these are connected to both of those. Not both of those, because those are the pistons to fire when it's taking the back step, so, like, these ones have to be negative to do the back step. So the negative one is running into this piston, meaning that, well, into the NOR gate for this piston, meaning that that's when that is, like, extending out. Which is correct, and I am kind of surprised that I got that the first time. But now we need to tune this a little bit, and I'm gonna try 0.5 again, now that I know that there was actually, like, some configuring errors before. You can't forget to do this as 0.5. Okay, 0.5 not enough. I'm gonna tune that a bit and then come back when I've done that. Okay, I have fixed all that. All it turned out to be was I needed to set it to 0.8, meaning that we can set this back to that red color, move this up, and then we basically are all finished. Like, this is a pretty simple build. It can walk while crawling. It's not the fastest walker. It is limited by the speed on those steering hinges, which is a lot less than it would have been with rotational servos, but they are at max speed. I guess one thing I could do, just as a little test, is click hold position. That, like, greatly affects the speed of them, as you can see. Yeah, not positively, though. And, like, then they are locked in the position and they can't go straight down, so that's not great. We're gonna just untoggle that again. Yeah. And then this works. This is doing perfectly fine. I don't... This is working better than I expected. Just so you can see some of the inner workings more, I've set it to glass for a second while trying to find a texture, and I liked this, so I'm gonna keep it for demonstration. But yeah, you can kind of see how the model is working, and you can see it go down. You can see the magnets in there too, for when I hit click. For the most part, I've bound it to the controls in Repo, however, I do need to... I'm gonna paint this back to, not glass, clean. I do need to unconfigure all of these hinges and the NOR gates. Where are the NOR gates? Are they up here now? Yes, they are. All of the NOR gates. What? Wait, there's a NOR gate down there? Okay, apparently. Yeah, because that's the one for the mouth. Unset the stuff from them so that I can, if I hold the left and right, I can't just randomly walk and take steps. And then I can configure this. I might need to run an XOR gate into this, but if I just do left and right, that should be fine. I didn't realize that that was at 1 strength. We're actually going to set that to higher. I thought that this was probably at like 7 or something to make the steps stronger. We're going to just do 5. 5 is a little strong. 3.5. Yeah. And then we have our little Repo bot. Oh, that's kind of funny. The Carball logo. I I hope you enjoyed this video. I found it fun to make, and I like the little result here. I'll try to remember to publish this. It'll probably just be Semibot by me, because that's what they're called. Well, by me meaning by Animalmango, because that's my username in Trailmakers. And then yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time, and I hope you liked the build. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you have any other things to leave in the comments, please leave them in the comments. And I hope you enjoyed. See ya!